Welcome back to episode 2 of the Asking for Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Mabe. Today's episode is going to be a pretty reluctant episode. So it's kind of a meet your host episode. So I'm going to talk briefly, hopefully, about my background, about my experience in baseball, about where I've come from, and some of the coaches that I interacted with. And really, the only purpose of today's episode is to give you an idea and a glimpse into my perspective and where I've come from, and really nothing else. As I've said on the first episode, I did not play in college. I did not play pro ball. And so this is not a, hey, I'm an authority, you should listen to me. If there's one thing that is a reason that you should listen to me, it's that I'm going to present questions, and we're going to focus on questions that really people don't want to talk about and don't want to ask. And so that's one of the focuses here at Asking for Knowledge. Our core focus is to help young players master the mechanics, mentality, and joy of baseball. And talking to parents, talking to other coaches, talking to people in the, we'll call it industry, the youth baseball industry complex system, is something that we're going to focus on and try to have those conversations. And so with this podcast, as I've said before, there will be 3 episode types. So Ask Out Loud, it's going to be me just like today, hopping on, having a quick discussion about things, asking questions that we may not normally either have time or the willingness to want to talk about or ask about. And that's one version of an episode. The second version will be Ask the Experts. We're going to try to bring in the folks that from every angle of this. So whether it be parents, coaches, instructors, whether it be trainers, whether it be even psychiatrists, sports psychologists, those type of folks, bringing them in to get their perspective, to get a better understanding of what's going on, who's benefiting, who's getting what they want out of, again, this system, this industry, and to make sure that we are on the right path to help our young players develop, to maximize their character and their potential as athletes. And really, at the end of the day, that's the goal for us. So really what we want to accomplish. So today's episode, I'm just going to be talking about my background, some of my experiences in baseball, a little bit of the good, a little bit of the bad, kind of how we got to where we are currently and what led me to turn on a mic and turn on a camera and talk about this. So going back to rec ball, we have recreation ball here. And have for a number of years. I was fortunate to play for a great coach named Joel Griffith. So the way things typically worked for us, especially, well, really through all the sports, but you had 2 age groups. You had 10s, 11s, or 9s and 10s, 11s and 12s. I'm not sure how it's broken up, but effectively you'd have a young team and you have an old team. And the teams typically stayed together minus a few players. And as each year passed, the young team turned into the old team, and then the old team went to the next age group. And it just kind of created this cycle where it's like you kind of got, beat around a little bit one year, and then the next season you were a little older, a little wiser, a little more experienced, and you were able to benefit from that and win more. And, as I said, I was fortunate to have a coach named Joel Griffith who really was ahead of his time. And Joel coached us, I know in soccer and baseball, I'm not sure about basketball, but he really spent a lot of time in trying to help us get better. He taught us about discipline. He taught us about structure. He taught us about toughness and goal setting. And all this, again, is a rec ball setting. The travel ball, to my knowledge at that time, did not exist. Maybe it did, but especially not for that age, it did not exist. And so I was lucky to have a great coach. He made us condition. He did a lot of things that made sure that we understood the game and grew in the game. And so what it resulted in is, from a baseball perspective, we were able to win a county championship, which was a goal we had set. From a soccer perspective, we were able to, I guess the best way I can say it is I didn't lose a game until I got into middle school. And so if that gives you any idea of the kind of coach he was, the kind of teacher he was, just a man that really had an impact and helped us and taught us as we came through. So that was kind of the rec ball, and then moved into middle school. I went to a Christian middle school, And so there, ages or 7th grade to 12th grade was basically played varsity sports or played sports. A lot of the schools were smaller. We didn't have enough players, so we didn't have a JV and a varsity baseball team. We just had one team. And so I was able to play up with the older guys because there was no other teams, not because I was that good of a player. It's just there was no other team. And so it is kind of funny to look back at that yearbook photo and see little midget me, amongst these 17 and 18-year-old men, and I'm a young fella in the 7th and 8th grade. So it's kind of funny to look back on. But the good thing was I got the perspective of facing older, stronger, faster kids at a younger age. And I remember being just scared to death to come in and catch some of these guys. I was a catcher and being scared and nervous, but you did it anyways. And it was part of your job, and it was something that was really great for me and allowed me to develop and grow much more than if I'd played only with my age group, which again is how the system is structured now. We won't get into that today, only quickly talking about my background, but short version is it was really good for us to play, or for me, to play against some older talent. Now, along those lines, in the summer, I did play travel ball. I played starting at 13 U. That was as early as I knew. I'm still not sure how Dad found out about the team, but found out about a team, went and tried out, and made the team. We were a good little team. Went out to Oklahoma, and I think we finished in the top 25 out there. So we had a pretty solid little squad. That team did not stay together as it was. Not real sure what happened. Back then, we didn't really talk about it. It's just like, hey, you're going to be on this new team. And I was like, okay. And that team was a team called the Carolina Vikings, and we played together for a couple seasons. And it ended up finishing third in the nation. We won the state at 14U and finished third in the nation that same year. And I just want to give a quick shout out to some of the players on that team and to give you a perspective of what kind of talent that team had. So that team, we had 2 eventual draft picks, a 3rd round and a 16th round that I know of. There could have been others. This is the best I could do from memory and a little bit of research. But we had 3 Division I players in baseball, 1 Division I in basketball, 1 Division II player, and 1 Division III player. And I know there's still, myself and then at least 2 or 3 more that I'm just not sure about what happened to them after, they left that team in their high school years, what happened. So there could have been more off that team. But the very short version is we had an extremely talented group and did extremely well. And so just great to be a part of, great to learn from, to be surrounded by that, and a good group. And we had a great coach. His name was Keith Walker, and Keith was just great. He was so supportive, so encouraging. He was a teacher. He didn't yell at us, didn't treat us any negative ways. You messed up. You learn from it, and just a great coach. And Keith coached for a long time and retired, but so thankful, so grateful to have that experience at that age. When we think about travel ball today, those coaches seem to be more and more rare. So that was kind of front end of high school. I did play JV as a freshman and then moved up to the varsity team as a sophomore. Again, I was a catcher. And junior year, we had a really good team. Had a couple guys transfer in, and again, we'll talk in much greater detail. I hope to have this gentleman on the show, but my junior had a couple good players, and one of them transfer in. One was a catcher, and so the position that I'd played since I was 9 years old, now all of a sudden I've got a guy that's really better than me. It still hurts to say it, but he was, and so I had to make the choice of, do I learn a new position so that I can get on the field, or do I sit? And as you can imagine, I was ready to learn a new position. And so when I hear either parents or coaches today saying kids need to specialize or pick a position at 10 or 11 years old, from my own experience, I kind of bristle at that. Because what happens when you get into that scenario and you've not spent any time at any other position, and that's your position. And now all of a sudden you got a guy that's equal or better than, and you may have to sit because of it if you're not willing to play other positions. And so I would always encourage teams or players, but teams, to mix the guys around, let them get exposure everywhere. If you want to get better at that specific position, let's say it's shortstop, then do the fundamentals, work on that stuff, but in game, get experience at every spot so that you at least can play somewhere if that situation happens to you. I was an average player, did okay. I did play a lot. So I talked about the early years with the travel ball 14, 15, played a lot in the summer there. Of course, played fall ball with the high school team. And then my junior and senior year, I played a little bit of showcase ball in the fall with the Carolina Sox organization. And was fortunate to play with some really great players there, some draft picks, more college players, guys that signed. But I really just did not do well. Really struggled, especially with the bat. I was always just decent as a defensive catcher, but really struggled in showcase ball with the bat. I don't know if I ever broke 200. It was one of those where I just played better when I was playing with my buddies, with my high school friends, with the guys that I was with every day at school and around my peers, and always enjoyed the other teams, always enjoyed the guys, always made friends, but I just never played as well with those guys as I did when I played with my buddies. And so enjoyed high school. I kind of made the decision early on that I wanted to play Division I, and if I wasn't good enough to play Division I would just go to school as a student and try to enjoy my experience, and that's what happened. I could make a lot of reasons as to why I didn't make it, but the truth is I didn't. The reality is that I didn't, and so I went to school as a student. But I'll say quickly to kind of wrap things up here, by the time I did finish in high school, I was hitting a wall with burnout. Every weekend, especially in the fall, I was pulled away from my friends. In my senior year especially, I was pulled away from the people that I cared about, that I wanted to spend time with, to go play and to try to earn a scholarship or get exposure. And it was really hard on me. And so by the time the spring season started, I played a lot, had developed the yips. We'll talk about that. I had a separated shoulder, a torn labrum, and so I played through that my senior year, and was pretty much done after that. So I had surgery, and that was the end of the baseball career. But I say all that to say I've got the perspective of what playing tons of games can do for you. I've got the perspective of the showcase scene and being in front of people and that sort of thing. And it's one of those where I think that's of importance with this podcast, because we're going to be asking questions. Now, that was 20 years ago, not to give my age away, but I'm sure things are different now. And so I want to understand what they are. I want to understand, for every player out there, what does this situation really look like? What are the things they need to focus on? Where do they need to put their attention? For parents, where do you need to make those investments? What's a waste of time? What's a waste of money? What are the things you should pursue in terms of development for your athlete, for your kid, for your family? So these are all questions and things that we're going to talk through and that we're going to go through. But I did just want to share with you today a little bit of my background, a little bit of perspective on where I'm coming from and kind of the angle. And like I said, we're going to talk in future episodes. We're going to talk. I was able to work with some great coaches. Some coaches. One's a manager in major leagues now. One was a hitting coach. Was a D1 coach, and then a hitting coach as recent as 2018 in the bigs. Another was a Division I coach that I had a great relationship with. We can talk, about my brief recruiting conversations with him, again in a future episode. But just wanted to share that perspective so you get an idea of how much I played. I think I did the math one time. I had it on a resume, but I think I played close to 150 games my last 2 years of high school. And really, by the end of it, I was done for. That was kind of the end of it for me in terms of baseball. The excitement was gone. The future was not shiny like I had hoped it would be. and so I needed to just shut it down for a while. So that's my background. That's my perspective. Again, I'm Jeff Mabe. I'm your host. We're going to be bringing folks on. We're going to be having conversations like this moving forward, and I hope that gives you a better frame from where I'm coming from and where some of my biases might be in terms of looking at what's happening in youth baseball and where we're going and where we're headed, and just kind of getting a better idea of how things are. If you're enjoying the show, give us a follow, share it with a friend. Until next time, keep on asking for knowledge.